My God. Where are the Italians? Oh, I guess they'll rush up to fight Yugoslavia. Well, fine, but... I think maybe about garrisoning, you know, your ports and your newly conquered territory? Or is that like, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, you're right. Hello, Lord Polish. Better to have it and not need it. Yeah. Okay. You come rushing into Zagreb. You come marching into there, and you come marching that way. Move out there. You support that. You guys move forward there. The Italians are heavily trying to get as much Yugoslavia as possible. They don't have time to garrison. Yeah. Yeah, that looks like what they're doing. No. We'll leave them at peace for now. We'll try to grab up as much territory as we can. I think there will be some decisions that will sort of sort out the historical. Occupations. Boma, keep moving forward. Oh, we picked up a few industries up here, I do believe. Okay, so let's look back at logistics, and again, we're going to ignore that. But let's see, heavy anti-aircraft guns, fixed guns. Reduce that down. We have a lot of those. Good. Their heavy tanks are mostly French junk. All right. Well, we can. Let's increase this by 1, increase this by 1. And we're going to come down here after we got those done. And 5 more for the regular trucks. We've got to motorize a lot of divisions. Or I want to, at least. Big Italy is coming. Yeah. Basic submarine factories were good. And improved Heinkels. Improved tactics here. Yeah. And we're going to use some of our experience. As Yugoslavia normally goes, it's just a rush to occupy. Hello, folk. Good to have you here, my friend. Just how fast can we get the units moving forward? That's what this becomes. Did we request access for Finland? I don't remember that, but who knows? Oh, we've got Bulgaria in now. Well, the Allies are done for. We got Bulgaria. Yeah, okay. He's improved with experience. Very nice for him. Okay, you guys got that. Okay, we found fund that. All right. Yeah. Just a bunch more fighters. Evil Bulgaria. Well. Agrees to cooperation with the. I believe that's regarding our oil here. Ecuador and Peru. Yeah, let's look at our trade here. Well, I am not sure. But we are getting positive on the oil for now. We're not making enough 109s as it is, so I don't know that I want to introduce another type of fighter into production. That's my sort of reason for not wanting to do it, is we're just not making enough fighters as it is, so... Oh, new and improved Panzer IIs. Yeah, what I want to do is over here. Let's see, do we have one? Yes, we have one that we need to click. And we can also click and get the Wasp. 105 mounted howitzer on it. Okay, good. Oh, we could also get the L version. Okay, we will do that. Oh, yeah, I just really wanted that cleared off. Okay, we could do new bombers. Don't know if I want to switch over yet. We've got a bunch of new models of tanks here. And new models of mortars, which... Be our current model of mortar. Yeah, we could upgrade that. Well, if I were to look into it, I'd probably find, oh, we do not have enough engine production capacity. I just glitched again. Gamers glitching. Yes, Wong washboard gamer did. Gamer hung, not the game. Gamer hung. Okay. Let's take a look at this. This has an engine here, okay? Engine production of 10 units. I could make this a question and answer, but that might take a little while for it to get all the feedback in. So I'll answer the question. What kind of engine does this have? An internal combustion engine, okay? It has a internal combustion engine. And what we will call, it could be a V engine or it could be a straight engine, but shall we call it an inline engine for the moment? Okay. The Condors. What do they have? An internal combustion engine. Now, I'm not sure on the Condors whether the transport versus the naval bomber. I'm not sure if those are radial engines or inline engines. But either way, they're internal combustion engines. Okay, so we agree. We can all agree, I think, on that. A Panzer IV, a tank. It again has an inline engine and a Pan 38T. Again, some of these could be V engines, you know, like a V8 or V12 or V6 or whatever. I don't know. Could be a V, but or as opposed to a straight inline. Probably more likely Vs. Okay. All of these guys here, engines, internal combustion engines, yes, internal combustion engines. So, just in case if you didn't know, you can put a aircraft engine into a tank. The reason the Sherman and the Stuart tank, and before that the earlier Grant tanks, the reason they are so tall compared to British, compared to German, and especially compared to Soviet, isn't just because Americans are tall people, so they need taller tanks to fit inside. No, it is because they put in a radial engine, an aircraft radial engine. Both those tanks, the same engines were used in aircrafts as well as the tanks. Some are transport, some are some fighters or bombers. I don't know exactly right off the top of my head which ones where, but those that engine production can go into a tank or can go into an aircraft. Now, even if in Germany they're different engines, which I think they are, I don't think there's a case where there's um, an aircraft engine is the same as a tank engine or a truck engine, but could be. I'm not the most detailed expert on this topic by any means. It's at least, especially for the N-line engines, it is the same production method. It is very little work, comparatively speaking, to switch making engine types. So I completely agree with the idea of engine production capacity as being a bottleneck. Again, one of the big question I have is, must be up towards the top. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, here. Horse transport carts. We're not talking about the horses here. We're talking about the carts. I really question how much metal there was used in there compared to a truck. Okay, so th- so this so this is postulating that this, and I don't know if you've seen pictures. There's a few, very few actually, compared to trucks and other things, remaining actual built for the Wehrmacht, wagons. Carts to me are generally two wheel. Wagons are generally four wheel. That's just in my head, and that may not be hold true in English language, a cart versus a wagon, but at least that's how I would define it here. Is a factory producing these now? Yeah, I know there, but 24 versus that per production line is using the same amount of metal. Not that we have a huge metal problem on Germany as a truck. Yeah, I know there's a bit of wood in the flatbed and back, and there's some other wood in the cab. Yeah, but the idea that one of these is using one metal to me is ridiculous. I know the tires, that's the outside of the wheel. They call them tires. Is metal, and then there's metal joints, probably maybe even a metal rod for an axle. Yeah, of course the nails, but that's really just crap metal. Um, yeah, there's a bit of metal in there. I'll grant you that, but I really don't know that, and I really wish somebody can. Iron horse is slang for a bicycle. Haha. Okay, yeah. Um, I don't know for production if, again, in Western Europe, now maybe this really comes down to somewhere in Asia or something, I don't know, but that could be handled in other ways, and simply making a where do we get uh, a Chinese or some other nation's infantry battalion move slower, as just um, a national trait or something. But I really don't know that wagons were a bottleneck in production. Okay, we're talking about production. We're not talking about wagons or horses. Again, I'm not the greatest expert on horses, but I do know a bit about them. Growing up around them, some compared to some people that have never touched a horse. I've ridden a horse a bunch of times. My grandfather had a ranch, rode a horse a bunch of times. Not a great horseman, but I know how to get on and ride around a bit. Um, not going to do anything, really tricky on a horse, but just get around and ride. I'm good with that. Okay, just to give you some of my experience. Horses, to a degree, need to be acclimatized to two things. If you take a horse from, I don't know, down here, you put them on a train and bring them up to here in the winter, they can freeze to death. Okay, they'll just freeze to death. Just if you're out walking around with them, you know. Where if I know for a fact if they're as it's getting colder and colder and colder, their coats will get thicker. Okay, so even if it's wintertime, I did sort of choose here and not North Africa, because North Africa can get cold, but it's not going to be terribly cold here in the winter, so they're not going to have a very thick coat of fur on them. And so you bring it up here in the wintertime, they'll freeze. Okay. Now, I do know that out here, Mongolians, they have horse, you know, they're some of the greatest horse people in the world, horse riders and whatnot. They don't name their horses. They do not personalize. A horse is like, for most people, a cow, or at least for a rancher. Ranchers don't. I knew like one guy who had a bunch of cattle, but also had sort of one cow that sort of hung out by the house, and they could pet it, and they fed it a bit, and I think they gave it a name. But mostly ranchers, at least, do not, you know, personalize. There's no personal attachment. I don't know if you watched really good series on Amazon, maybe find it other places by other means, called Clarkson's Farm. Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear, really good series. And, you know, he's doing a farming, and so farmers may be different. I come from a ranching background. And they like naming the cows, and they're really worried about this one cow who isn't getting pregnant. And so then I don't know how much is it because it's a series, or whether it's his emotion that, okay, even though it's not going to get pregnant, so the cow will not have a baby and will not produce milk, because you have to have a baby to produce milk. Now you can keep it producing milk on and on and on and on, by simply, you know, draining the milk away from it, you know, milking the cow. And so if it isn't going to have a baby, it isn't going to produce milk. So that cow is now, that they decided not to have butchered because it's not getting pregnant, for whatever reason. Even artificially they tried and whatnot. It now just becomes a pet because it's you're not butchering it. There's no productivity out of it, and all they're going to do is feed it. And so it's a pet now, so you give it a name. Like I say, the Mongolians did. And these horses out here, and these steppe horses, do not come inside in the winter. The Mongol horse is like some of the oldest horse breed types out there, sort of the closest to the original idea of a horse before humanity gets in and really breeds it up. And so, yeah, so they can out there in the middle of winter. And I don't know how much of that is the particular breed of the horse versus growing up, and every winter it's that cold, so it knows it. Where you get horses, again, like I say, here in Germany, where it's, it snows and it gets cold, but it isn't fucking effing, super cold Russian whatever. Well, my understanding at the counteroffensive, as the Germans slowed down outside of Moscow and couldn't go any further, they went into winter quarters, meaning find or build some shelter because it's going to get cold and you do not have winter uniforms. Okay. And what you also do is bring the horses inside. Not necessarily maybe in where you're sleeping, but maybe just in a barn or shed or some other sort of structure to keep them, warm. And keeping them dry helps keep them warm. So, snow will get on you, but it also sort of melts as it, next to your body. And so that makes it wet and kills it. Well, the Germans with the Russian counteroffensive, lose huge amounts of trucks and tanks and any motor vehicle out here because the combination of snow and just too cold. And part of with all that is they can't get the fuel to them too, but they don't have enough antifreeze. And again, I have to wonder, freaking God. Oh, well, they thought, modern day people will go and, oh well, it was sort of kicking the door, um kicking the door production of, or kicking the door. Sorry, I was reading um Yagashura's comment here, but kick in the door, Russia will collapse. Fine, but you've got to occupy whatever you're taking. So I don't know why, because Germans knew about. It's not like Germany didn't know about antifreeze. They knew about antifreeze. They knew about winter coats. They knew how. Trust me, there were many in the high command. Some, including like Rosenberg, are from like freaking Moscow. I think Rosenberg was, well, maybe he was more Baltic German or something like that. But definitely a bunch of German various types were like born in the old Russian Empire. So, and where they grew up and amongst German families there. So it's not like this is undiscovered country that they had never really been to and only read about it in books. They knew what was there. So they're going to occupy it so that they didn't make sure that you didn't have antifreeze in your vehicles. I don't know. But also the snow, of course, will bog down vehicles. So Germany loses so much of equipment that they just can't pull back. And even the horse transport, you get these poor horses that just aren't used to the idea of the snow and the cold and whatnot. And it just overwhelms them. And they just can't function. And I don't know if you guys know this, and I know I've given talks on horses before. A horse like this, doing this job, pulling this wagon, cannot live off of grass that they eat. Okay, that's just a no-go. A horse on its own, left out in a field with grass, just fine. It can handle that just fine. But you know what a horse does all day out in the field of grass? I don't know if you've noticed this, if you watch. They eat grass just about all day. Oh, they get up and sort of gallop around and, nuzzle each other and whatnot a bit. But they spend much of the day eating grass. Okay? Well, let's just say half of the day, sake of argument, they spend eating grass. So they would only give a horse cart transporter, because I know a lot of people think, oh well, they just munch some grass on the roadside or keep the horses going. No. If you're going to do that, that means, like, I don't know what, 6 hours if it's 12 hours daylight, or if, summer northern altitudes or latitudes. I mean, not altitudes, latitudes. Yeah, okay, longer time, but okay, maybe you're good even 8 hours in a day that it can operate. But that's it. You got to stop and let them, or more. They got to eat a lot of grass. So what they used to do, and again, I don't know so much for like Germany in World War II, but because I've read about history in other periods, like during the Napoleonic Wars and the 18th century, a cavalryman had a little handheld sickle, like you see on the hammer and sickle sign. They'd have that, and they would go out. The cavalrymen would go out into the field, and they had little net bags, and they'd go and harvest grass, because a horse can ingest grass faster than it can graze and eat it. Meaning, because take a mouthful, chew it, and you got to take a few steps. It takes a while, but you could just present it with a bunch of grass in a trough or in a place to eat it, and it can stand there and eat it there faster. And it would be willing to eat that at night after briefly. Does need sleep, but it needs feed, and most of the time that's one element, is time spent. Hey, come to watch Hearts of Iron 4, get lectures about horses. Yes, I know. Hopefully this is interesting. So one is time spent grazing. Two, doing this takes a lot of energy for the horse, okay? It burns a lot of calories to do, haul things around, because that's a fairly light vehicle. There's a lot of infantry divisions, and I've seen photos with where are they? Why am I? Oh, here, just because of obsolete in front of it. With the big artillery being towed by horses. Okay. Now, a lot of times they were trying to motorize the forces and the heavy artillery. Heavy artillery and medium artillery being towed by horses in horse divisions. Trying to motorize them, but they're definitely, a lot of them are still towed by horses. And all of that takes a lot of energy to do it. So you now need a superfood. It's not just, do you have enough time to graze? You need a superfood like oats or alfalfa. Alfalfa is, you might think of it as hay. It's a sort of a type of hay. It's not straw, but it's sort of a dense plant that's grown for horses, generally speaking. Or oats or some sort of superfood to keep these guys fed so that they can, put out the energy, the calories to move wagons, often across rough terrain. It takes a lot out of, for horses to do this kind of work. And for horses to do most of the work for, humanity asks of them, again, it takes a lot of food for them to do it. It isn't going to be just casual grazing on good, rich grass if it's available. It takes a lot. Now, in winter, even that doesn't exist. So they lose huge amounts, even if they get the wagons out and the horses out, and even if they don't freeze, how many days are you going to be able to march through the winter? Now, a human is much more resilient than a horse. A horse is rather fragile. And partially you got to realize that because, as I mentioned earlier, something like a small Mongol pony, that's what they originally like. We've, through selective breeding, have created, sort of super athletes. And if you get an athlete who's used to inhaling a lot of calories, and you stop giving him those calories and you expect him to do anything like he sort of kind of was before, he's going to collapse. Where a standard fit human will generally be able to perform longer. I'm not talking your couch potato types. I'm talking about a fit person compared to sort of an athlete, because an athlete is, his body is set up to inhale. It's just like if you take that athlete and then you turn him into a couch potato, he instinctively will keep eating the way he's eating, and he'll balloon up and become fat. So these horses are a way in sort of athletes and kind of thing. So moving through the winter. So I am not saying that at the point of contact with the enemy, that horse carts or horses, however you want to look at that, were not a failure point for the army. What I'm saying is do we really have information where horse carts, again, I'm not talking about something like a garrison unit, which is, now I know this is just a silly little one battalion garrison unit just to sit on the ports. But I'm not talking about some division, even, fortress division or whatever, that just doesn't have that many, carts or wagons or horses, because it wasn't meant to move anywhere. They've got some to, deliver ammunition around, to move one artillery piece at a time around, but they're not a mobile infantry division, even on foot. Because again, you got to move human food as well as animal food as you march along, or the humans are going to have to go spend all their time looking for things like food. So yeah, some divisions can't move. They just become if required to all move all at once, they just become a gaggle of men marching in a direction, because they're no longer a coherent force. But I don't know that production was ever really the bottleneck. Where engines were a serious bottleneck. I know we're getting back around to the game. Bottleneck for production. And yes, I do. They may need a resource. Maybe is it a minimum of one resource per factory? Okay. Well, you could create a bullshit resource that everyone has, you know, a million of, or something called wood or whatever, and just have a wood, you know. Another fun fact: Japan did not have hardwood. Does not have hardwood naturally. That is a limiting factor for Japan because they can't make rifle stocks. At least not one-piece rifle stocks. What all the Japanese rifles, and I have two of them, right here where the sort of the semi-pistol grip, straight back, there's a line because they've had to glue two pieces of wood together. Because they do not have naturally up in Japan a piece of hardwood that could take the recoil and functional use of a gun that would be able to be this wide, cut out of trees in a large enough volume for rifles, kind of thing. Yes, during the war, they do get down into Burma and you know, Thailand, where they have teak, which is super hard. Though I understand it's sort of poisonous if it gets like splinters under your skin, so you don't want teak wounds. It'll fester or something. I'm not exactly sure, but teak, meaning it's a problem I've read about if you make ships out of teak and then you slam cannonballs through them and then the splinters go flying into human flesh, that can be more of an issue than with oak or some other hardwood. But so yeah, Japan does not have good wood for rifles. They have something that's acceptable, but it has to be glued together to make a basic rifle. So you could create, if you had to do it, you could create a wood source, but make it, you know, all nations just have, you know, just forests and wood and whatever, and just make it a bullshit thing. If mechanically you need to, because I don't think I should either have to, whatever nation, that I should have to be giving up my civil factories here to trade for steel for these damn carts. Okay, bottlenecks. Back to the engines where we started. So I agree with the engines as being a bottleneck. Oh, and one of the reasons, or the only reason I know of that Germany does make the Focke-Wulf 190 is because it was a radial engine instead of an N-line engine. And there are different manufacturing techniques, and Germany had maxed out its aircraft production for you know, fighters and bombers with N-line engines, but they had from, I think, set up, and they could expand it from the Ju-52s, you know, the tri-motor transports and whatnot. They had radial engine production to spare, so the 190 is using a radial engine. So it's a different manufacturing process, but we're not going to overly complicate things. We're getting close to the glitch the gamer had here. Okay, so motorcycles, yeah, N-line engine, small, okay, you know, much smaller than a tank engine, but factories and lathes that make machine guns and rifles, you can't just go, oh, well, we're going to make 105 millimeter artillery pieces. What? No. You need big lathes, you know, to bore out the, you know, both the inside and the outside of the rifle, or the, you know, the barrel and all that stuff. So you need big, heavy construction things, and the machinery that's making the barrels aren't going to make machine gun barrels. You know, so sometimes things are mutually, you know, machinery more or less is mutually exclusive. You know, won't do it. Get back to trains. Trains are a steam engine, ladies and gentlemen. If there's any ladies out there, hello. Tinky might be around. I don't know, but this is no one is doing serial production of like the diesel electric type or other internal combustion engines. They are purely, I think mostly just a handful have been done as sort of test engines or special express train that they, make one engine and a bunch of cars that are, and I've collected photos and whatnot that are going fast or whatever. But Germany, especially with its, I don't know if you've heard about this. Germany has a, fuel problem, oil problem, yes. So they're not doing any of this crap. So why do they need an engine? Yeah, I know it is a train engine in and of itself, but a steam engine, it's going to be a very different manufacturing process. I would say, if anything, if you want to do that, if anything you want to do there is make it this tank production capacity. Because I believe it was the five major American train engine production factories. At least 5 of them, I believe it was, and maybe I think they were the 5 major ones. Pretty solid on that. Starting in 1942, the beginning of the war, the government goes to them. We need you to make tanks. So all 5 of these, and what they're doing is they're welding and assembling, welding up the steel for the the hull, and then assembling, because they have big cranes inside to move either a turret or a tank body without wheels. Just be able to pick up and move these things inside the factory effectively. And so they're not making the road wheels or the tank barrels or any of that crap. They're just doing the welding and putting and assembling, wiring them up and putting all the pieces in and dropping the engine into it. After, I don't know what year, but I think sometime in 43 or definitely by 44, 4 of them have gone back to making train engines because they've spun up enough factories that are dedicated to tank production. And of course, as you know, the Americans are spamming out Shermans and Stewarts and everything else. One factory was noted for being very efficient and very high quality tanks coming out of their production line. So they stay through to the end of the war making tanks and not going back to train engines. And they definitely get more train engines in production during the war once they switch back to then at peacetime, because they've got to. America is shifting troops and resources all over America back and forth, and around, and resources from one coast to the other coast to make parts, and then taking those parts back to the other coast to get assembled into a ship or an aircraft or whatever, and they're going back and forth. So they need a lot more trains, and of course they're sending huge numbers of trains to places, the Commonwealth or to the Soviet Union, train engines, I should say. They're shipping them all over. So they need the train engines too, so they go back to that. So tank assembly plants, I'll grant you, as being a similar infrastructural production facility, because you have a big, huge engine sitting there, you need to, pick it up and move it around, on a crane. You don't get 4 guys to pick up a big engine like you put in a Tiger or something. Maybe 4 guys to pick up something that goes in a Panzer I, but and be able to lift it into the vehicle and move it around. So and that you sort of need to move the big components as they're being manufactured and then assembled into a train. Engine capacity. That's the glitch. Let's see what you've been going on about. Okay, I think the German required. Okay, resource. In the Napoleonic times, the medium and heavy cav had their horses walking besides the troops most on the time during marches to spare them. Yes, that's very true. A lot of the time they did walk their horses. Absolutely. Generally speaking, it is thought by people who look at and develop war games. And I know Beam Slam knows, at least online, a few of us, because I do consider myself, as in making detailed mods, as making a war game. That cavalry strategically moves at the same speed as infantry. Now, tactically, like for a day or two or for whatever, they can move a lot faster. But the time it takes to, like I was talking about, feed the horses, as well as saddle them up, and then once you get to sort of location, to unsaddle them, and you'll walk them around to sort of cool them off, because you don't want to immediately just stop and say, yeah, you're hot and sweaty, and you just sit there, because of the way the horses' bodies function. They can overheat and die if you get them all hot, because riding around with a person, with a person's gear, a saddle, and all that junk on them on the back, riding sort of, not just casually sort of sauntering along. Well, they could do that. That's like going at infantry marching speed, but sort of riding quickly. They're going to build up a lot of body heat, and they're, through their, breathing and whatever, they're exhaling that heat to compensate for it. But if you all of a sudden just stop, they can overheat. So you want to walk them a bit to keep them sort of moving, to slow them down, to not put them into problems. So yeah, you've got to handle horses a lot. They're great to use, before you get motor vehicles, but they have their limitations. So you're absolutely right. They would keep them going slow. And it also, meaning a horse, the way it's designed, unless you're talking about really like deep snow or deep mud or up hills or whatever, unless you're talking about bad condition, you could generally walk a horse, with, just a saddle and a little bit of stuff on it, and then just keep feeding it grass and it'll be fine. It's mounting that person on its back, or having it tow, along with some other horses, but tow a wagon along, that's where you get the real effort in. Or if it's just running a lot. But if you're just walking at human walking pace, yeah, all day long, that horse will just travel with you, and just make sure it has enough time to eat and whatnot, and it'll be okay as long as it's getting decent grass and whatnot. Might not be great, but it'll be okay. It's, again, putting the person on it and moving around. Japanese used capitalism to kill their hardwood trees by overharvesting. It was profitable. Very interesting, Ragar. I don't know where you're getting that information from. I know the split wood thing goes well before the start of World War II, and I think it goes back to the 1900, around to 1900, before the Russo-Japanese War. So I don't know, and it's also hardwood suitable that's long enough for stocks and other uses. It's not, but stocks, rifle stocks, very briefly have huge G forces on them every time that you pull the trigger. So something soft like pine or whatever are going to beat themselves apart very fast, even if it's just straight back. Now, if you go down like a 22 caliber rifle or some bullshit like that, yeah, we're not talking that. We're talking about a rifle type of World War II, which is a rather powerful cartridge. But especially when you're then transmitting it down not straight back, but because of the semi-pistol grip and the stock is below the line of straight back, that would shatter and break and wasn't good. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't know your sources and exactly what you're referring to, Raggar. What's the glitch? Well, I was glitching. So you don't have more modern AT guns at this. Oh, at 41. Okay, well, blown horses was the expression. Yes, Beam Slam. That would be one of the expressions to use for horses. Okay, well, Germany. Now we're not talking. Oh, AT guns. Oh. Well, we got in 41. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess we could go to here. What? Why doesn't this tell me that this is now out of date? Thanks, Arno. You did point this out because I was waiting for something like that to show up to say do new guns, but absolutely right. Though this 41 is about the time that they just start getting into production of the 50 millimeter. But yes. They actually even destroyed softer trees, thus they were forced to import wood from Korea and forced Japanese society into rapidly adopting bamboo alternatives. IRC. It was during the Tokugawa era. Okay, so the Tokugawa. Okay, so we're talking Tokugawa shogunate, which is from what? Right around 1600, 1650. I'm not good with dates, as regulars know. Up until about what 1850 or so, with Commodore Perry showing up and the Meiji Restoration, which is sort of what 1850s, 1860s, right around there. It takes a few years for the for your switching over from shogunate power to imperial rule. Yes, I am concerned about the food. What am I looking for? I'm looking for this. And this is also, hello, what is it? Mauricio Lugo. Okay. Again, this is gamer playing and looking at the economy, what we have to build. Now we're building a bunch of railway here. Okay, we've captured some industrial farms here. Okay, so this province is bringing in 54 food. Base that. Base 31 times 1.75, right? 154. Now, we had been at 12% for a long time, I believe. So we're slowly dwindling out of stockpile. So I don't know. I do know this is another interesting topic here. No. Let's come to Let's get a universal one so I know I can look at any sort of panel. We have been researching cropping focus, this 3-point hitch. Okay, industrial farm construction speed is just faster. Doesn't help on food production, though. I went down this path as opposed to this path. Base stability, I don't know if that would have been a better one. And of course, we've done refrigeration, which makes your decaying of rations a lot slower. Ration production factor plus 5%. And we've also got vacuum sealed, which reduces decay. What? Industrial fertilizers. Those watching later on YouTube, come back next time after Gamer hits his reset button and comes back from another glitch. See you then.